So I'll wait till I'm motivated. I haven't got the motivation. I'd start, but I soon lose motivation. What's the point if I can't keep the motivation? I know that I can't. I've got loads of evidence that I can't keep the motivation. Any of those resonate with you? Do any of those feel like how you feel when it comes to looking at what you need to be doing, how you can move forwards, how you can look after you? Is it all down to that root of motivation? Do you look on at other people and think, do you know what, I really, really admire the way that when they decide that they're going to do something, that they set their mind to it, that they do it. They must be so motivated. They must have so much motivation. What if we look at that sentence? When they decide to put their mind to something. It's more of a choice. It's more of a decision. It doesn't have layers of motivation running through it. We're not asking for a sudden motivation to hit over us. People aren't always motivated. Motivation is fickle at best. Motivation comes, motivation goes. But when we make a decision, when we decide to do something, then perhaps that's incredibly different. Perhaps that is what opens the door to us being able to do, being able to take action, being able to step into. Because it is within our heads that we find all of the reasons why we can't, the excuses, the stories, the stuck. And it is within action that we create evidence that we can and momentum that carries us forward. So say, for example, we were going to get rid of the heady thing that we say is motivation. Say, for example, that instead of feeling like we need to have a certain environment and number of mindset factors come into play, that instead we made a choice. We made a choice to do things differently. Because there are times where we knuckle down. There are times where we get on with stuff. There are times where, you know, within all of the actions and things that we are seeking to do, be, have, achieve, that instead of spending all of this time over here, overthinking it, overanalyzing it, deciding whether or not we're motivated to do it, we could have already done it. And yes, there'll be some things that you need to do that make you feel scared, that make you feel apprehensive, that make you feel a little bit nervous. But when you've done them, then you can feel proud. Then you can feel smug AF. Then you can feel like actually doing the thing was really beneficial, that you managed to do the thing, that you now have evidence that the thing had an outcome. And perhaps what we need to do instead is, rather than seeking motivation to take the action, be inspired by what the outcome may be. Be inspired by that feeling that you will get once you've done the thing. So instead of putting the motivating factor into having to do the thing, perhaps looking at how the outcome may lie and what might be that outcome would be much more beneficial to you in being able to move forward. Pride, accomplishment, a tick off the list, an opportunity to move forwards. Perhaps future focus is the inspiration to move you forward, is the catalyst, rather than seeking motivation to do the act and activity. Because in life what happens is that we have stuff that is non-negotiable. It doesn't go through the thought filter of whether or not we are motivated to do it. This stuff gets done regardless of whether or not we feel motivated to do it. You put the bins out every week, regardless of whether or not you're in the mood. You don't have this huge analytical situation as to whether or not you are in the mood to put the bins out. You put the bins out. You do it without thinking. You don't have this whole dialogue with yourself about whether or not you'll take the children to school. You do it. It's regardless of that thought path and the things that are coming up for you. So sometimes we have to simply make things non-negotiable. We don't need to analyse whether or not we're in the mood to do something. If we're going to simply say, I am going to do this thing, then the only person that we're torturing by procrastinating over doing it is ourselves. Because it doesn't matter whether we're motivated or not to do the thing. We're going to do the thing. So the only person that is going to struggle for us making a whole big deal about doing the thing is us. One of the things that I was asked a lot during my fitness journey in 2019, losing over 6 stone, was how do you stay motivated? And at first I found myself trying to analyse the motivation behind it. At the very beginning, I didn't have any specific goals. Specificity seemed ridiculously overwhelming because it seemed like it was so far away from the reality that I was living at that point. So I wasn't motivated by going and achieving something that was a long way away. I simply decided to back myself and give it a punt, give me a punt. I decided that each and every day that I would back myself. I decided that I was allowed to prioritise time for me, even though I had a hectic schedule, even though I had a business to run, even though I was a mama with children to look after. It was okay for me to do that thing. I gave myself permission. I made a choice. I made a decision. I started to take steps. Did I always feel like taking those steps? No, I didn't. But it was a non-negotiable. It was a non-negotiable that I was going to take that step. I was going to move down the path. You know, I knew that every day that I took a momentous move forward, however that looked, whether it was tiny, whether it was huge, that I was moving forwards. And I also knew that I didn't want to go back to the beginning. So within the action, I created the momentum. And I hadn't come this far to only come this far. After day one, having the reference of, I don't want to be back at the beginning. I don't want to have to take that first step again, would allow me to continue that process. I haven't come this far to only come this far. I will take the next step. I will make a conscious choice to take the next step. So perhaps what I'm saying is that sometimes we have to sidestep the mindset. Sometimes we have to look at things and say, do you know what? I'm not going to let it be a whole tirade of choice and decisions and things that I have to think about. I'm simply going to make it non-negotiable. It's going to be something that I do, and that is it. And that is how I'm going to treat it. I'm going to treat it like putting out the bins, taking the kids to school. Doesn't need a whole thought path around it. Doesn't need me to decide whether or not today I feel motivated to do it. And just consider for a moment, if we can be motivated by the outcome, if we can be inspired by how we will feel further down the line or after we've done the thing, then we can look at, I don't want to let down my future self. I haven't met her yet, and it would be terrible to set off on a footing of letdown. So here's the thing. Motivation is fickle. Motivation to's and fro's like the tides. You can't always be motivated. Sometimes you just have to steady yourself and do rather than think, because it is within the action of doing that we create evidence that we can, that we are able, that we are capable, and that we have momentum. It is within our heads that we create the stories and excuses and the reasons why we can't. So instead of trying to hanker into the fickleness of motivation, why not back yourself, make it non-negotiable, and take the action. Speak soon. Bye.